Most of us learned history in a simple way. Long ago, people lived simple lives. They built simple tools. They understood less than we do. Over time, knowledge slowly grew. Eventually, we reached the modern world we live in today. Cities, machines, science. That story is easy to understand, and it feels complete. Until you look at Babylon. Babylon was a real city. It existed in the area that is now Iraq. When archaeologists first began digging there, they expected ruins, broken walls, collapsed buildings, signs of a city that had stopped working. Instead, they found signs of planning. One early discovery was a small clay jar. It looked ordinary, nothing special. Inside the jar were three things: a copper tube, an iron rod, and dried residue. For a long time, no one knew why it was made that way. Later, someone rebuilt the jar using the same materials. The rebuilt jar produced a small electrical charge, not enough to power anything large, but enough to measure. That mattered, because copper and iron don't end up arranged like that by chance. Someone put them together on purpose. As more of the city was uncovered, similar signs appeared. Under buildings, archaeologists found clay pipes. They were not open trenches. They were not rough channels. They were fitted together. They were sealed. Water flowed through them. Waste flowed away. That kind of system requires planning. You have to decide where water enters. You have to decide where waste exits. You have to think ahead. These pipes were not only found under palaces, they were found under ordinary homes. That tells us this was not a special project for rulers. It was part of daily life. Inside some homes, archaeologists found thin discs of glass. They were clear, smooth, thicker in the center. When placed over writing, the letters appeared larger. They worked like simple magnifying glasses. Someone noticed that this shape made small details easier to see. So the glass was shaped that way. Again, this was not accidental. By this point, a pattern became clear. These objects were not decorative. They were not rare. They solved everyday problems. Water needed to move, so pipes were built. Waste caused problems, so it was guided away. Small details were hard to see, so glass was shaped to help. This is how a city functions. Archaeologists then noticed something else. In some deep rooms, the ceilings showed very little smoke damage. That was unusual. If rooms are lit by fire every day, smoke leaves marks. Ceilings darken over time. But in these rooms, the ceilings stayed mostly clean. This suggests fire was not used much indoors. It suggests people tried to use light in other ways. Possibly sunlight, possibly reflection. Babylon received strong sunlight most days. Using it would make sense. None of this required advanced technology. It required observation and repeated choices. Babylon did not look chaotic. It looked organized. Not modern, not industrial, but deliberate. A city designed to work day after day. This makes the old story harder to accept, because the old story says ancient cities were crude and disordered. Babylon does not fit that description. The same kinds of solutions appear again and again, and repetition matters. One clever object could be a coincidence, but practical systems spread across an entire city point to shared knowledge. People learning from each other, passing ideas along. This leads to a new question. If they understood how to solve these basic problems, what else did they understand? Because what we have seen so far is only the beginning. The deeper discoveries do not make Babylon simpler. They make it harder to explain. And that is where the story continues. As the digging continued, something started to feel off. Not suddenly. It happened slowly. people began noticing marks on stone. Big blocks, hard stone, the kind of stone that's still difficult to work with today. We usually picture ancient workers shaping stone by hand. Slow work, careful work. And when stone is shaped that way, it always looks a little rough. The marks aren't neat. They don't repeat perfectly. But that wasn't what showed up here. Some of these stones looked different. The marks were smooth. They followed gentle curves, and they showed up the same way again and again. Too neat to come from someone working by hand. A modern stoneworker was asked to take a look. He didn't rush. He didn't explain anything right away. He just stood there, studying the surface. After a while, he said quietly, "This wasn't done by hand. Something was spinning." That sentence stayed with people, because once you hear it, the pieces start lining up on their own. Spinning means steady movement. It means something kept turning the same way, without stopping. Babylon didn't have electricity, but it didn't need it. Water flows. Animals pull. Gravity never switches off. Those things can turn wheels, and wheels can turn tools. Once that idea settles in, another find starts to make sense. Inside an ordinary house, archaeologists uncovered a stone mill. Nothing impressive to look at, just a tool someone used. But the wear on it told a story. It was even, consistent. It looked like it had been turning smoothly, not pushed and stopped over and over again. What surprised people most was where it was found. Not in a palace, not in a temple, in a regular home. Which means this wasn't unusual. People weren't using tools like this to replace themselves. They were using them to make work easier. And when work gets easier, life changes. People have time to learn new skills, time to improve what they already have, time to teach others. You can see that shift in the metal tools they left behind. Archaeologists found old saws and drills. They were worn, but they were still there. Iron usually doesn't last that long. These tools did, which tells you they weren't made carelessly. Someone knew how to make them last. That same care showed up in smaller pieces too. Bits of metal with teeth cut into them, clean cuts, even spacing. Parts made to fit together, not decoration, not for show. By this point, Babylon didn't feel simple anymore. It felt thoughtful. People there weren't trying to impress anyone. They were trying to make things work, to save effort, to save time. And once movement becomes something you can rely on, everything else starts to grow from there. That's when archaeologists began paying closer attention to what lay beneath the city. And that's where the story takes another turn. As people kept digging, attention slowly shifted downward, not to new buildings, but to what was underneath them. Below the streets, archaeologists found shafts, vertical shafts, deep ones. Some of them connected to horizontal tunnels. At the bottom of many shafts, there was standing water. At first, people thought they were just drains. But then they noticed something else. The air inside these spaces felt different, cooler. Even on very hot days, hot air moved down, cooler air moved back up. No fire, no moving parts, just air moving on its own. In a city like Babylon, that mattered. Summer heat there is extreme. Anything that made indoor spaces cooler changed daily life. And this system didn't burn fuel. It didn't create smoke. It just worked. As these shafts were examined more closely, other details appeared. Thin layers of material lined parts of the tunnels. Copper mesh, plant fibers, sticky coatings. They slowed the air down. Dust settled there instead of blowing inside. This wasn't decoration. It was built to do a job. People didn't need to understand germs to notice that cleaner air felt better. As work continued, another building stood out. Not a palace, not a temple, a storage building. Inside it were thousands of clay tablets, records. But what drew attention wasn't the writing. It was how the tablets were kept. They were stored on shelves coated with a material that resisted fire. In a dense city, that mattered. Fires happened. Someone had planned for that. Nearby, small objects appeared. Seals, used to approve documents. Each one carried a pattern that was hard to copy. It helped prevent forgery. People cared about who was allowed to approve what. Farther out, near the fields, more systems appeared. Simple gates along irrigation channels. They opened and closed on their own. When water rose, the gate lifted. When it dropped, the gate fell back. No one needed to stand there all day. The fields watered themselves. That saved time, and time mattered. When food was reliable, people could focus on other things. Learning, building, keeping records. Then came one of the most surprising finds. A thin metal plate, etched with lines. At first, it looked decorative, but as more of the city was uncovered, the lines matched real canals and real streets. Some of them hadn't even been uncovered yet. This wasn't a symbolic drawing. It was made to match the city as it actually was. Someone had measured the city carefully. Someone had thought about it as a whole. Finally, among writing tools, archaeologists found pens, metal-tipped pens, hollow inside. Ink flowed through them. Writing didn't need to stop every few words. That made record-keeping faster. By now, the pattern was hard to ignore. Babylon wasn't built by accident. It was built by people who paid attention to how things worked. Over time, that kind of knowledge doesn't disappear all at once. It fades when cities fall apart, when systems stop working, when people are forced to leave. And that leaves one final question. If people once built cities like this, why did it stop? If this story made you stop and think, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment and let me know what you think.